So you've probably heard the term closing costs. If you are thinking about buying or selling a house, you've heard that one thrown around here and there. None of it particularly makes any sense, and no one will actually give you a definitive answer on how much they are. Why? Let me tell you, it is actually complicated. But I'm gonna break it down in this video to help you more understand what exactly are closing costs. So to start off with, when you're buying or selling a home, you do have closing costs, even if it's cash and there is no loan. But they are different. And both a buyer and a seller are going to pay some closing costs that are going to be towards the actual process of the house. I'm going to go into buyers first. It's a little bit more complicated. So closing costs in Texas, I'm going to assume that a buyer is getting a loan. It's going to include one of several things. First of all is title fees. The deed of the home actually is going to be transferred within the county that the house is being purchased from the seller's name into the buyer's name, of course, giving you ownership. Now, there are going to be fees associated to that if there's going to be a lien put on the house by a loan holder. For example, if you are going to be getting a mortgage loan, there will be a lien. They always say clickbait, if you don't pay, you don't stay. That is actually recorded with the county, and it is on the deed of record for the home. So there are actual transfer costs of that. There are miscellaneous county fees for the actual recording. There are miscellaneous fees with the title company for handling the escrow account. Of course, when you buy or sell a house, the realtor does not handle the money, the lender doesn't handle the money, definitely not the buyer or seller, but it is held in a third-party escrow account at the title company. And they are going to charge you a small fee for managing the distribution of money. Of course, when you buy a house, your earnest deposit will be made to them, your deposits for termination option, your lender will send their money to the title company, and then of course, out of that, the title company will pay off a mortgage loan if applicable on the seller's house. They will pay out the realtors that are involved. They'll pay out any of the HOA dues that are needed. Anyways, of course, there's a lot of different fees that can be associated with it, but they do handle that, and they will charge you a small fee. Again, these are $400 or $500 roughly. $400 or $500-ish for miscellaneous title fees and that escrow fee. You will also have, when you purchase, a title policy that is an insurance that protects you from the time that you purchase the house all the way back to, in Texas, a little bit of Easter egg, all the way back to the formation of the country of Texas. We do have records back that far. And it's just ensuring your house that there are no, unsettled liens on the property. There's no, arbitration going on around it. There's no heirs of someone who passed away and it was unclaimed. They're going to do a full title search, and they will issue you an insurance policy guaranteeing, and ensuring, of course, that your house is free and clear. No one's going to try to take your house from you. Again, that's another cost. Typically, and this is typical of course, your total title fees buying a typical home in Texas is going to be between $1,000 and $3,000. Again, blanket statement, $3,000 usually for a higher purchase price. They're insuring more, so your title policy will be a little bit more expensive, and can be as low as $1,000. It really depends on where you are and of course the actual details with your contract. And again, back to the beginning of this video, this is why most people won't tell you a definitive answer. It does vary. Typically, title costs are fixed with the exception of the title policy. The title policy is based upon the value of the asset they are insuring, aka the house. So the more expensive the home, the more expensive the insurance policy. Your realtor should be able to work with the title company to be able to get you a good estimate on this. Most home title policies fall in that $1,000 to $2,500 range. The next big part of your closing costs are going to be lender fees. If you are getting a mortgage loan on your house, there's going to be an origination fee, an appraisal fee, miscellaneous document fees. There's most likely going to be a credit fee, to actually pull the credit report that they're going to use to issue you that mortgage. Sometimes they call it underwriting fee, Anyways, there's going to be miscellaneous things. That's a great question. If you are interviewing lenders, ask them what their fees are. Most things, there's only 3 or 4 actual lender fees. Some of them are third party. For example, the appraisal. Appraisal fees can vary wildly, especially over the last couple years when we saw a huge influx of refinances. Appraisers were very, very busy, and that meant, frankly, that supply and demand said that they can charge a little bit more. Appraisals got really expensive. If you're looking at an acreage property or something extremely unique, maybe a custom build, those appraisals can cost a little bit more money. It takes an appraiser more time to assess and give their opinion of value. It does depend wildly. Typically speaking, an appraisal is usually going to fall between $500 and $2,000. Something with 3 to 5 acres in a relative suburb of town, probably going to be right around $1,200. Your typical, production master plan community where there's a lot of other comparable sales is probably going to fall around that $500 mark, maybe $600. Whereas a custom home on huge acreage, it's going to be several thousand typically. So that's one thing to keep in mind also. Appraisal fees do vary. It's something the lender requires, but they do not charge you. So even they usually cannot give you a really good estimate of value. Again, you can get a ballpark generally, but it is going to depend on a case-by-case basis. One other thing that typically is lumped in as a closing cost is survey. Again, if a property does need a new survey, that is something that's going to be paid for by either buyer or seller. Either way is specified on the contract. And again, that really depends on how big the property is and or how hard it is to access. A typical, quote, postage stamp lot in a master plan neighborhood, usually going to be $700 to $800. I've seen $10,000 surveys before for really big properties. It takes a lot of work. It's a little bit understandable why they are so expensive, but in Texas, it is required that a survey is recorded, so not much we can do there. But again, typically expect $700 if it's needed. In Texas, we can reuse past surveys as long as they are insurable. Ultimately, that's the discretion of the lender and the title company. But again, another one of those closing costs. But getting past all of that, you're like, okay, it's $4,000 or $5,000 maybe. No, sadly. So Texas, we have no state income tax. It's one of the biggest draws to our state. But because of that, our state has to get revenues somewhere for all the infrastructure that we love to drive around on and enjoy. And frankly, that does come from property taxes. Property taxes here fund almost everything in the way that most states use their income tax. But because of that, we have a fairly high property tax rate for the country. And the lender issuing the loan on a house is going to want to protect themselves, when the new bill comes out every year. So they are going to have you prepay what they call a cushion of property taxes. Typically speaking, that's 3 months. 3 months of prepaid property taxes. A lot of houses in Austin are seeing property tax values from $8,000 to $20,000 a year sometimes. If you need 3 months worth of prepaid, again, depends on the house, but that can be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 worth of prepaid property taxes. Now, of course, once the bill does come out, typically here in the Austin area, comes out between October and November with new values for that year, and again, due by January. If it does come out and you have too much in your account, of course, your mortgage company will pay your property taxes for you and then issue a refund for anything remaining. It's not money lost, but it is something that you do have to come up with up front. So just be aware. Property taxes, again, it's going to depend on the tax rate, the value of the property you're purchasing. Those sorts of things will make a difference on how much your closing costs are. Again, just because the lender's protecting themselves. What I have seen some other lenders do also really depends on the time of year that you're purchasing the home and whether or not the bill is out, is also collecting a 4-month cushion because they know they'll have to either pay their property taxes very, very soon, or they were already paid. Anyways, every lender is going to handle it a little bit different. That's a great question for your loan officer on exactly how they handle these. But typically speaking is 3 months worth of prepaid property taxes. The other thing they're also going to collect for is 1 year, typically speaking, of homeowners insurance. They are going to collect it every month as you pay your mortgage, but they are going to pay it every year. So you are going to prepay for it for that first year up front. Again, it really depends on how old the house is, the value of the house, the location of the house. Obviously, flood zone, waterfront is going to be handled differently than something at the top of a hill. Anyways, that's going to vary wildly also. Again, it's one of those, like, there's a little bit of a reason why no one will tell you exactly what to expect, just because it does vary. You know, typically speaking, for a new build home, you could potentially find homeowners insurance around $1,000 a month. Excuse me, $1,000 a year. I have seen it as high as a few $1,000s a year. Just depends. Depends, of course, on the value, the age, and all the insurability factors that we would assume. So, in summary, closing costs is really complicated. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that varies depending on the house, the purchase price, the taxes that are applicable, you know, whether or not you're getting a loan, how big the loan is, what your qualifications look like. You know, are you waiving escrows, things like your property taxes and insurance? Anyways, it does vary drastically. But boiling it all down, typically speaking, I tell my clients, if you are getting a loan on a property, I would budget for about 2.5% of whatever you're planning to purchase as estimated, you know, prepaids, like everything all in for your closing costs on top of your down payment. Down payment, of course, can vary, but having 2%, 2.5% in your funds available for purchase to get for your closing costs is usually the best bet. If you do have that, usually you're really well set. But sometimes lower, sometimes higher. Don't fully guarantee it. Best thing you can do if you want a good estimate of these is talk to your loan officer, ask them to run numbers for a specific property that you're looking at. They'll be able to answer that really well. Hopefully this video broke down a little bit of what all is included in closing costs for you. I do hope, and I make these videos to try to be educational. Buying a house is stressful, selling a house is stressful. There's really no avoiding it, to be totally honest. I think we all know that. But the more we can do ahead of time to reduce the stress, the better. Then it can just be a happier transaction. If you have any further questions, if you want to talk about something or clarify something more, my contact info is right here. Text me, call me, email me, whatever's easy for you. I'd be really happy to answer any questions you may have. And if you are in the greater Austin area and you're looking to relocate, buy your house, sell your house, talk to an expert, someone who really, really knows their contracts inside and out, can be able to explain these things to you, know what to watch for, potential pitfalls in a buyer if you're looking to sell your house, and work for you. Make sure you're protected and you fully understand what you're doing when you're buying. I'd love to help you with that process. Shoot me a message. Again, contact info right here. I'd love to chat with you about getting you moved to my birthplace, my favorite city. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe also for the YouTube algorithm, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.